Welcome into the Thunder Basketball Universe presented by COOP Ale Works. We're recording this on Thursday, October 20th. That means the regular season has officially begun. One of 82 is in the books for the Thunder. The team just got back from Minnesota last night where they tipped off their very first game of the regular season. A lot of excitement. These guys were just juiced to be back out on the floor. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Mike Muscala, those guys were back in the lineup after missing the entire preseason, and you could tell it was just so high energy in Target Center last night.
Yeah, got to talk to Kenrich Williams before the game, and he just could not contain that smile, and he got a start. He didn't start a single game last year, and so was really cool to see how the Thunder just kind of from the very opening tip had that energy, had that juice. Obviously didn't execute the way that they wanted to from the very outset of this game, but you saw the extra efforts from guys like Poku on the glass. You saw even a rookie like Ousmane Dieng like getting down on the floor for loose balls. So that energy was certainly there.
Yeah, and you made the point, Nick, that I think is pretty important is that Thunder didn't like really play their best game by any means. And in a lot of the preseason games look pretty sharp, but that didn't carry over. Obviously, you're adding in the fact that SGA is now back, and so he's trying to kind of get some of his rhythm back and then reinstall that with the group themselves. But what stands out to me is that there's so many areas that are available for the team to kind of improve upon. But what they really got by on in that game was just like energy, effort, intensity, scrappiness. And so like that to me is it's always kind of been part of who the Thunder are just historically. But I think it's really specific to the kind of this core. And we saw that so much last year with this team with the comebacks that they were able to pull off. But as this team really kind of refines itself over and over again, which in that third quarter, I think that they started to find that rhythm a little bit more. You had that scrap and that intensity and that effort and energy, and then you put in some of the other stuff, and that's where they can really start to kind of start to climb the ladder a little bit.
Yeah, it makes you think that just the slight turn of the knob of we got to play faster. We need to be able to string some stops together. When they did that, it was that 27-5 run that you mentioned. If you haven't dug yourself a 16-point deficit, then it's a much different game.
Yeah.
So I think the Thunder and a lot of the guys, Paris, they talked to us after the game about recognizing. I think about Josh Giddey saying when you're down by 15, you could come back from 15, but you got down in the first place, and we need to make sure that that's not happening.
Yeah, and just to level set a little bit, the Thunder, obviously, like you mentioned, got down big in that first half, down by as many as 16 points. Kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start offensively. Minnesota obviously came and just landed the first punch there. But the Thunder went into halftime. They kind of recentered themselves, regrounded themselves, and came out with an MO to play faster and to really dig in their heels defensively, diving on the floor for loose balls. They came up with the majority of the 50-50 balls in the second half, which I really thought spoke volumes to what the emphasis was in that second half. And then they went on a monster run thanks to everybody that was on the floor. I'm going to point out Eugene Omoruyi because he came in big time, a two-way player off the bench, and he came and gave some really productive minutes. And the Thunder took their first lead in that third quarter, but down to the fourth quarter where it wasn't quite enough to pull out the win. But like you were saying, Royce, the scrappiness in this game, the grit, the fight, the intensity in that third quarter is exactly what the Thunder needed. Is now it's just about doing that for a full 48.
Yeah, Eugene was a plus 13 in his 15 minutes. And I suspect that he probably would have played anyway because I think that was kind of the approach that Mark Daigneault was taking. 13 guys played in the opener.
Yeah.
A lot of different lineups, a lot of different combinations. But it was probably just kind of he was probably pushed into action maybe a little more directly because of J-Dub's injury getting hit in the eye and him not being able to play. But, they put Eugene on the floor. And not only that, but he's playing center
to defend Towns.
Karl Anthony Towns. So, that was an approach I think that was really interesting that Mark Daigneault and the staff kind of went with was to go with smaller guys. You saw Lou Dort on Karl Anthony Towns a lot late in the game and really just kind of trying to challenge Towns to try to bully him a little bit. And these big Thunder physical guards that they have, he really wasn't able to do that. And they really kind of held their own. But, a unique starting lineup going with Poku at the 5. But you mentioned it, Nick. I think this is something that a lot of people are going to get used to throughout the season. You're going to see a lot of different lineups. I don't think there's going to be just like a starting 5 for the Thunder where you just kind of pencil in who's it going to be every single night. I think, and we even saw in the second half, the starting lineup for the second half was different.
Right.
And that's kind of an unusual thing in the NBA, but I think that that's something Mark Daigneault's pretty comfortable doing.
Yeah, he views that as just a substitution, not anything like a statement or anything like that. But Royce, to your point, I think steering into the skid is something that the Thunder is going to be willing to do this season. So instead of trying to load up on big men to deal with Minnesota's size, the Thunder went the opposite direction and tried to use their own strength. And again, if executed better, if those shots fall, I mean, I think the Thunder started like 3 for 14 from the field. If they shoot the ball a little bit better early on, maybe the scoreboard doesn't look the way that it does. And you're saying to yourself, okay, well, this team that went way small with Poku at the 5, Kenrich at the 4, they actually end up out-rebounding this massive Minnesota team over the course of the game, out-rebound them on the offensive glass and second chance points. So there are some interesting things to take away here, especially given the fact that you're executing this style with Omarui and Dort, where we've seen this over the years, Royce, where smaller players can get up underneath big guys and really kind of take the wind out of their sails.
Right, because they're hard to dribble against.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a fact of physics where the ball has to bounce up high, and those guys that are really scrappy, especially when they're like the caliber of Lou Dort or Eugene Omarui, that they can really, really bother you where you're uncomfortable trying to put the ball on the floor. The way that the Minnesota offense is kind of engineered, and the way really basically almost any modern NBA offense is engineered, it's not like Karl Anthony Towns is starting on the block. He's going to get a lot of his touches at the top of the key, maybe at the elbows even. And so if he's going to go down and try to post one of those guys up and utilize his size, he's got to dribble his way there for the most part, because their offense just isn't built to just throw him the ball on the block. And so the Thunder, like you said, Nick, I think they just kind of turned it against him. They just leveraged that against him. And to me, it was a really interesting approach. I do want to shout out, again, Poku starting at the 5.
Right.
We saw the improvements in preseason with him. And, I think a lot of people were maybe surprised at the fact that Poku started, especially against the Timberwolves front line. I mean, he held his own. And I think Poku really played with toughness, really kind of stood up rebounding the ball. And it was great experience for him. He was on the floor late in the game. Didn't have some great moments there late, but, that's part of the process, I think, with Poku, that you saw really 23 really good minutes from Poku, where he was really, really solid. And that was kind of a new experience for him to be in that closing group. But I think that we're continuing to see those strides for Poku, and it was really encouraging.
I have to remember he's still only 20 years old and holding up against those guys that have been in the league for almost a decade now.
Yeah, and to both of your points, as a spectator seeing this, it was so fun to watch. Like when you see the 7-foot front line of Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns matched up against Kenrich Williams, Alexei Pokusevski, and the Thunder's smaller lineup out there, you're thinking to yourself, all right, I'm really interested to see how this works. Like I'm fascinated. And then in the third quarter, when things went down like they did, that's entertaining. It's really fun because that this group had to be scrappy, they had to fight, they had to be disciplined and diligent in everything that they did to outmatch the Timberwolves in that third quarter. And when it worked, it was just so fun to watch.
Well, and part of the reason was the atmosphere last night, Paris.
It was loud.
And you have to remember, this was the Timberwolves home crowd's first opportunity after the team basically bet the farm on and leveraged its entire future on this trade for Rudy Gobert. This is their first chance seeing them in action. And I think it's even more pent up and sweeter for Minnesota fans to be able to embrace this team, because the last 18 years, they've only made the playoffs twice, never finished higher than 7th in the Western Conference. They've had 15 lottery picks and deployed them in a variety of different ways. And so this is sort of a culmination of this extremely long rebuild that's had fits and starts. And so to see that energy in the building last night is pretty fascinating, especially when it's kind of juxtaposed against this Thunder team where, they've got a bunch of lottery picks that they've acquired just in 2 drafts right now, and so many more on the horizon to come as this young kind of core is coalescing. So 2 vastly different styles in terms of how rebuilds have been done.
I mean, I think it's a great point, Nick, and it's just important in terms of like the perspective of how of how it can go and how you don't want it to go all the time. But also, I do think that just, speaking of the energy and the atmosphere, I was really curious to see how this young Thunder team would handle that. And, there was part of me that wondered if the Thunder could get off to a really good start and you would make the kind of the opposing crowd or the home crowd uncomfortable, make them squirm a little bit because that energy is kind of built up. That didn't happen. And so once the Thunder got down early in that game, you kind of had this worry that there was just kind of going to be this snowball effect that the Wolves, with the energy in the building, that they were going to be able to just kind of roll over OKC. But again, that's where this Thunder team is kind of special, that they are able to stand. I mean, these are a bunch of 20, 21, 22-year-olds that are going into that like heated environment with a charged up crowd, and to be able to just turn that on its head in the third quarter and really flip the energy in their favor. I mean, you guys were there, you know what it probably sounded like and felt like in the building there. That was, to me, really interesting that this Thunder group could do that.
Just to speak to how loud it was, I remember you were doing a hit on air and like you were screaming into your mic, but I couldn't even hear him in my ear. I had like both earpieces in and I was like, I can barely hear Nick, but I can hear him yelling because I'm sitting right behind him. It was just that loud in there. Yeah,
but Royce, to your point, like this Thunder team is kind of like that meme of the college graduate who has 6 years of work experience already. It's like trying to, you think about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I think a guy who actually came off the bench and had a really underrated 17 minutes was Darius Bazley. He's a guy who, as we talked to him before the season started, like he's seen a lot of these pictures before. He's been in a lot of these games before. He's been thrust into these moments, and he was kind of like, of this new iteration of the Thunder, he was the first guy that was kind of put into some of these situations in this new era of the Thunder. And so to have a couple of those guys that can be relied upon, and I think Shai and Darius, among a couple other guys, really help steady things for OKC in that second half.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just had to double check. Darius Bazley, like the old sage veteran on the team that's seen a lot. He's 22 years old.
Exactly.
But that's kind of how it is. But I think that's a great point on Baze. And I think it also just kind of speaks to how any given night guys are going to play different roles. Baze got 17 minutes. I think in another matchup, in another game, Baze might see 34 minutes. Right, and there's going to be just that kind of mixing and matching when it comes to it. But I think the point that Mark Daignault's really trying to emphasize to the team is like, you just got to be ready on any given night. We'll prepare you on the matchups. You'll understand what we're looking at and what the plan is. The plans can change, especially you get an injury like J-Dub and you don't anticipate that sort of thing. So you kind of got to restructure it a little bit. So I think that having everybody ready and available to jump into a role and be productive when they get that opportunity is a really important part of this team, because I think Mark Daignault really wants to utilize the depth of the roster as much as he can, because again, like nobody played themselves out of a role in preseason. Everybody played well. It's not like oh, okay, this is starting to coalesce and kind of make sense here.
Right.
You still got to kind of see who's rising to the top.
Right. It would have been convenient if guys had kind of made things easier on the coaching staff, but that's not the case. There's so many options on this team.
And it's a good reminder that this is one of 82 touch points, right? And the Thunder's going to use all 82 of them to evaluate, take a look at different guys. And Eugene Omoruyi is a great example of that. He was ready to go and he stepped in, and the Thunder learned more about him in that game against Minnesota. Thunder learned more about Aleksej Pokusevski, Darius Bazley, learning so much, and it's just one game into this season. So a lot more to evaluate, a lot more to take a look at, but a really, really strong start for the Thunder. So we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, don't go anywhere, because we're talking about a special project that our very own Royce Young put together for this season.
COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
All right, so it's the 15th season of Thunder basketball here in Oklahoma City, and our very own Royce Young put together an awesome project to kick off the season. I was juiced after I watched. I was ready to run through a wall. Royce, tell us about this project and why it was so important.
I mean, first of all, I really like doing these. I like doing video essays. I used to do them a lot at ESPN. They're always fun to do. I worked with Michael Zubak, who you guys know really well, and he's like super smart and such a creative guy. And one of my favorite things about doing these sorts of projects is that basically, you kind of come up with a concept and a script, and you almost just kind of turn it over to the more creative person, which is Zuby in this case. And he just kind of takes it, and he had this really cool concept for this projector, and to kind of like give it this sort of like, looking back but keeping it present idea. And it's just so fun to see, like, all right, this is kind of my idea, and I'm gonna hand it to you, and then he's gonna take it from there and really, really crank it up. And so that was really fun to see kind of what he came up with there. But it is kind of crazy, Paris, that this is the 15th season. And it was really kind of a fun concept for me to think about, like, it's the 15th season. It's also the 15th Thunder team.
Right.
And there's been 14 other Thunder teams, and each team has been different. They've had their own personalities, their own characteristics. But at the same time, there is just always this kind of like constant enduring framework that just kind of exists within the Thunder. And you can draw a through line from 2008 to 2022, and where the rosters have changed, the people have changed, but the Thunder really are kind of the same at the same time. And even from team 1 to team 2 to team 15. And I think that's kind of a cool thing that the Thunder organization has kind of been able to build.
Couldn't help but think of the carousel episode of Mad Men when I saw that projector screen. But and what you were tapping into is that nostalgia, right? But what's so amazing about the Thunder experience is there's such consistency that you can be nostalgic and yet still hold on to exactly what those teams were because of those shared values that have kind of like tick forward each year. What was once there hasn't been lost in the same way that it is for a lot of people who feel those pangs of nostalgia.
That's a great way to put it, Nick.
So it was really cool to see you lay all of that out. Some of the shots that Zuby was able to track down were just amazing.
He's a master with the drone.
Yeah.
By the way, for those who don't know, Zuby is one of our awesome videographers here at the Thunder and also director of OKC Thunder Films. And he is just a creative mastermind. He's awesome.
He's almost hit me in the face with a drone one time.
Same here. Oh my gosh.
But
he's dangerous too.
He's a little bit aggressive with it, but he is really, really good at flying those drones around and getting cool shots. I mean, even those shots of like the mountain stuff, those were his shots with his drone that he got. So
oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And it was great because I took away from it just kind of the excitement going into 15 seasons, because 15 in the course of an NBA's like landscape, relatively young, right? Like kind of relatively young, but so much has been accomplished and done over those 15 years, and there's still so much like on the horizon and so much to look forward to. I mean, this is the youngest team in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I mean, second youngest in NBA history behind last year.
Exactly.
But also just like the concept of like, when you do think about just kind of looking back at the other era of the Thunder and climbing that hill of establishing a franchise and what it took to do that. I think it goes beyond just like the wins and losses and how successful those teams were early on with Kevin and Russ and everything. But it was like building a framework of a franchise too, and establishing yourself in the community and all those things that had to go. I mean, Sam Presti said it like they showed up without pens and pencils and paper clips for crying out loud. So like, you had to do all those sorts of things while also trying to put an adequate basketball team on the court. And so and it was a completely different era. The NBA looked different. And now, every team in the NBA has to finally kind of come down. It's almost impossible to sustain for 2 decades.
That's how the NBA is set up. I mean, it's designed
intentionally
to do that.
so. Contracts run out, players move on in free agency, and Thunder held on for a long time, an unusually long time, to stay on that mountain. I mean, again, people forget your concept of time gets kind of messed up here. It was only 2 years ago that the Thunder were in the bubble playing a Game 7 against the Houston Rockets. That was Team 12.
Yeah.
This is Team 15. And so it feels like it might have been longer than that. That was only 2 seasons ago. It's only been 2 drafts since the Thunder had that team where you pick Josh Giddey and then you have the Chet Holmgren draft.
Right. I mean, two calendar years ago, Poku hadn't even been drafted. Mark Daigneault wasn't even the coach yet.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. It's crazy how our concept of time gets messed
it's
up.
easy to get all messed up just because the pandemic was in the middle of all of that, and we were
100%.
working from home and there was nobody in the arena. And so those 2 seasons
you've kind of almost like piled 2 seasons into one calendar year. So.
So time is all out of whack.
That's what, and that was kind of part of the concept is that like, you have these mountains that you're trying to reclimb, and that is a difficult challenge in the NBA, is to do it all over again and to do it in a different era, and to, it's going to take a lot of ingenuity. It's going to take a lot of courage. It's going to take a lot of resolve. But clearly, I think that this Thunder organization is like willing to take that challenge. I think that's part of like the DNA of the city and the state, is to say like, oh, you don't think we can do it? Well, like, watch us do it. We're going to do it. So that was kind of like the spirit behind it, and I'm glad you guys liked it. That's
very well written and beautifully shot and put together by Michael Zubak. So if you haven't seen it, you can find it on OKCThunder.com. It's called The 15th Season, or you can go check out the Thunder social channels. It's out there right now. Be sure to go take a look at it. And Royce, we really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much for being here.
Fun as always.
Thanks, Royce.
All right, we're going to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. We've got an all-new segment of In the Know coming up right after this. We're back with an all-new segment of In the Know. This is a segment that we love here at TBU because we're bringing in leaders from around the Thunder business office to help you as fans understand better what you're seeing on the floor, throughout the arena, and on social media and on the website so that you understand what's going on a little bit more. And today we've got a very special guest. Very timely, given that the regular season home opener is right around the corner. We've got Jason Quintero with us. He is the Thunder's Senior Manager of Game Presentation and Entertainment. That means everything you see that is fun and exciting in the arena, JQ's team is taking care of all of that. So, Jason, thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me. This is fun. This is exciting.
Yeah, you have such a long history with the organization, 15 years here. We just got done talking to Royce Young about the 15 seasons in OKC, but even before that, you have been in this business. Will you just give us a little background on your career and how you've gotten to the point that you have?
Absolutely. So this is, as you mentioned, 15th season here with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Prior to that, I worked 6 years with the New Orleans Hornets. And my connection to the city would be during Hurricane Katrina. For 2 years, we relocated here, and I was part of the game experience here. So fell in love with the community, the team, the fans, and I realized that if there was ever an opportunity to come here, I'd want to be part of that. So that's my background.
Yeah, and so on a night-to-night basis, when we've got 18,000 fans coming into the building and all their eyes are locked in on the court, you're down there. What is your role in coordinating all of the different entertainment that comes through the floor?
Okay, so I guess the two main things would be on game nights, I stage manage, so basically traffic cop for everything going on and off the court. But probably the main responsibility would be creating or crafting the game log, which is a detailed schedule of events that happens, outlining the entire game day. So from what happens and when it happens for timeouts, entertainers, music, videos, what the mascot skit's going to be, like all the elements that go into the game is something that I directly have my hands in, which is pretty exciting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think people realize how important of a job this is, traffic cop, because during any given game night, there's so many things happening for the game night experience. I mean, you've got Malcolm, our MC, you've got Rumble, our mascot, you've got the Thunder girls, the Thunder drummers. I mean, the list goes on. Halftime entertainment. Yeah. You've got a lot going on down there.
Well, we have a really good team. So the thing is, we have lots of people that do their jobs really well, and they make my job easier. So it's a lot of pieces to put together in a puzzle. Sometimes you make the puzzle and there's a couple of pieces that are remaining. You're like, okay, I got to redo this. Something didn't happen right. But for the most part, it's a pretty well-oiled machine, and everyone knows their roles, and they take a lot of pride in what they do. But you're right. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of mouths to feed, and we just try to do what's best for the fans.
But I think people don't even realize about the game log. I mean, this is down to the minute.
Yes.
Sometimes down to like
second.
the second of
Absolutely.
when these things have to happen, because it's like a Broadway production of like the music has to come on at the exact time that the Thunder Girls are running on, or Rumble's got to come out, and he better not be coming out at the same time that somebody else is going out, or they'll knock everybody over. So I mean, there's like all of these things have to be coordinated so perfectly and so in sync, and you all do an amazing job of making sure that goes off without a hitch.
It's you learn a lot of things doing this, repetition, clearing the court at the horn, and what can you stretch time wise in the crowd versus on the court to get more out of, maximize the timeout. The energy if you're planning on something, but then you're going to a free throw, and you really don't want to come out to something, getting the crowd going crazy when you're shooting free throws. There's a lot of little audibles that get called during a game, but we had to be prepared for anything.
Yeah, that's a great point, because you do have to be in tune with what's happening in the game, and if you're off rhythm with that, that's an issue. The other thing I just think about is a project that Paris and I worked on was Pause the Game, our OKC Thunder Films documentary. You all were right in the mix of trying to keep 18,000 fans calm when there was that uncertainty about what was going on when both teams left the floor on March 11th, 2020.
Yeah, I give John Leach a hard time about that because we saw him everywhere. Like he's our celebrity. No, but it was just communication. John had a plan A, B, and C for what's going on. We were just trying to keep the fans engaged. I think we ran through our junior dance team performance, our halftime performance.
Yes.
We did everything pregame, and then I think it was handled about as well as you could.
Yeah.
But it was. having done this for 20 years, you pretty much experience everything, and that's definitely something to remember.
Yeah, you provided a sense of normalcy for
Oh,
sure.
just a little bit in the
Yeah.
midst of what was
Yeah.
chaos in the in the back hallways. Speaking of just seeing everything, obviously you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen the Thunder game night presentation change over the course of the years, but for me, I feel like there's just something so special about being in Paycom Center, right, for a game night and
Absolutely.
being in that arena. What are you guys going for on game nights? What's kind of the goal every night?
Well, growing up, if I went to a game, I've lived all over the United States, mostly in Texas. If you went to an event like a Rockets game or Major League game, it was you would do it maybe one time growing up. It was like a big deal. It was a one-off. I never lived in a city where I could potentially be a season ticket member. So I know that it's very important to me to have that, recognize that this could be that one event, whether it's a Wednesday versus a lower tiered opponent or a Friday night versus the defending champions. So you always want to treat every game as though it's a unique event and, try to make it memorable for that family that's coming here, that's spending their, hard-earned money to come to a game. So that's always been something that I've been passionate about. It's just, just trying to do as much as possible each and every game night. And for the most part, I think we jam them full of entertainment so people get their money's worth.
So we've talked about kind of some of the mainstays, the things that are traditions that Thunder fans who've been coming to games for a while can expect. What are some new things that you all have up your sleeve this year?
Well, without giving away too much, I think some of it is basically reconnecting with fans is a big emphasis this year. First of all, for a lot of our entertainers, this is their first experience without restrictions with fans to go full throttle. So that's a big deal, and you can see that they've been paying their dues.
Yeah,
they worked a season, with restrictions, with masks on. They've done that part of it, and they embraced it. Now the reward is to actually go back to the touch points. So reconnecting with the fans, you're going to see our entertainers in the stands. You're going to see us in the concourse. We're going to want to take a photo with every fan if we could. We're embracing the getting back to normalcy. Love's Kiss Cam is returning. I mean, that's a crowd favorite. We couldn't do that wearing a mask. It's hard for our storm chasers to interact with fans and scream when you're wearing a mask, or you're about embracing people and keeping your distance. So we're getting back to normal, and there's a lot of promotions, a lot of things we're doing, fan interactions. The big banners that go across the crowd, the soccer style stuff that we started embracing. We're getting jumped back into that starting opening night. So it's going to be as though we didn't miss a step. So we're the signature moments that people missed or remembered from pre-COVID, we're getting back to that. So that's exciting for us. We might have some new traditions happening, but we're kind of going to lay low on that. You need to come to the game. But we have new lighting enhancements this year. We have 5 signature videos that we play every home game, starting from Thunder Up moment to hype, intro, halftime, and third quarter break. All new content. Our production team's been working really hard getting that done. We have, the fans want T-shirts, so Balon Blaster, one of our most popular timeouts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we go from we're going three of them this year versus 1. So
nice.
It's going to be insane. Everything we're going bigger, louder. The teams have been practicing really hard late into the evening to get ready for opening night. Everyone's taking this really seriously as far as being prepared, and I'm excited because we'll be ready for opening night.
Yeah, JQ, I'm curious. You've been doing this for a long time. Does the excitement of opening night ever change for you?
No, it doesn't. No, it absolutely doesn't. Opening night, there's certain things I think through the history you'll find out. I tell people like playoffs is obviously something that there's a certain excitement level. Opening night, theme nights, it's just opening night is the best though. I mean, it's the sense of optimism going into the season. A lot of people, it's their first experience. Family members are at games that haven't been there. There's a lot of pride in being a team member of an entertainment team. So it's just everyone wants to put their best foot forward, and it's exciting. And every year we seem to bring a new wrinkle into what we do, whether it's an entertainment team. As you mentioned, our roster, we also have a in-house DJ, which some people may not have experienced him yet, MC1. But there's a lot of things that, I feel like we're coming together, and we have all the restrictions taken off. We're not one hand behind our back. We're full, as I said, full throttle. into what we're doing, and we have all of our assets available to us this year. So it's gonna be fun.
And just a reminder that first home game, October 23rd, that's Sunday at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And JQ, I'm sure after that game, you're gonna put your clipboard down like the coach and feel good about getting that one, getting through that one.
For a couple of days, and then we'll get it started again. I would say though, as a fan, if you guys can get here, in your seats by 6:40, I think it's really important for our team and our new players to be there for our Thunder Up moment, to welcome them on the crowd when they onto the court the first time this season. So, arrive early, take advantage of your Thunder seat tag at your seat, scan it, get in the game, be involved. That's the other part of what we're experiencing this year with technology, trying to enhance that experience. You can be involved in voting for what you want to hear during the game. You can order concessions from your phone. There's a lot of cool things, but just, soak up everything that's on the game night experience. It starts the moment you open the door, the concourses, taking advantage of all the free, things that we have available, face painting and, all the photo ops, but just get here early, enjoy the experience.
A lot to look forward to. And I know Thunder fans are really itching to get here into Paycom Center. JQ, that is some awesome information. Thank you so much for joining us and helping us out here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Looking forward to Sunday. All right. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to our special guests, Royce Young and Jason Quintero, and to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.